Andor Episode 6 is an absolutely amazing episode on multiple levels, but one scene in particular captures the essence of what Star Wars is about. In the episode, Andor and a group of rebels hatch a plan to steal millions of credits from the Empire. They time the plan to correspond with a cosmic event known as the Eye so that they can make their escape during a meteor shower of sorts. But of course, this plan doesn't go off exactly as intended, and a nearby airbase operated by the Empire is alerted to this, and they scramble a couple TIE fighters to intercept them before they can make their escape. This is the scene in question that I think perfectly captures what Star Wars is about. We see a couple of TIE fighter pilots running across a platform to get into the TIE fighters, and in the next shot we see them silhouetted against the backdrop of this cosmic event as they're getting into the TIE fighters and preparing to leave. And where I think this scene really captures what Star Wars is about is in how we see this duality between great cosmic events with religious significance and the turning and activating of this immense military machine. Star Wars has always had this duality between science and magic and mystic forces against military forces. This kind of duality has been seen throughout the franchise from the early days, and obviously the big example of this is the Force, a mystical energy field that is created by life and exists across the galaxy. But we see this in other places too, where these events of cosmic significance, of religious significance, play out as almost all-encompassing, all-powerful acts for which even this powerful military machine is in awe of. And I think the Eye captures this perfectly. Now, there is an actual scientific explanation for what the Eye is. Basically, when the planet Adani passes through a crystalline belt, it causes this meteor shower of sorts to appear. It's very colorful, it's very immense, and it's very powerful, and this event happens every 3 years. The people of Adani, the tribes of Adani, view this event with great religious and mystical significance, believing basically it's the eye of the universe opening up and looking upon them. And so we see this cosmic event which has a scientific explanation, but also great mystical and religious significance. And we see how the Adani tribes are being dwindled by the Empire, they're being manipulated by the Empire, and even though this gathering, this ceremonial event centered around the Eye, has dwindled in numbers since the Empire took over the planet, we still see some of the tribesmen come to witness this event. And in one part of the episode, even the soldiers of the Empire are seen kind of in awe of this great event. And this is Star Wars to its essence. We see this perfect combination between the mystical, science, and military might. Everything does have its explanation, but it works perfectly together in that mysterious but also scientifically explained way. And for the tribes people, this is obviously a religious event. For the Empire, it just looks like a really cool cosmic event. And for the rebels, it serves a very important purpose to help them hatch their plan to steal all these credits. And that's something that's also important to understand about Star Wars. It's not just the coexistence of these different ideas between the mystical and the scientifically explained, but how they interact together. We saw this in the early days in A New Hope when we see weapons of war being used by the rebel to take out the Death Star. Yet it's Luke's decision to not use the guidance system and instead lean on the Force that ends up saving the day. And so this combination is really where Star Wars is very interesting. It's that these things coexist in this world. These things on the surface seem like almost opposite forces, where the mystical is obviously much more based in kind of a faith and mystery, and science is very much based in understand the natural world, and these military forces are interested in controlling the natural world and people. So these forces do kind of seem like they're at odds with one another, but over and over and over again in Star Wars, we see how the mystical and the known play into each other. The natural world is what ties this all together. The Force is a part of nature. It's obviously mystical, but it's caused by life. Plant life, animal life, human life, all life causes the Force. So there's a natural essence to it, even though it's mystical. And we see the exact same thing with the eye, where the eye is very much a natural phenomenon, which can be easily explained, but it's also mystical, and it also helps the rebels, almost like the Force. And I think this scene where we're basically seeing the TIE fighters getting ready while this immense cosmic event is happening in the background, symbolically, through its imagery, perfectly captures what Star Wars is about. This combination, how it works together, and also how, as powerful as the Empire may be, and how powerful as the Empire may become, and how powerful certain humans may become, whether that's Anakin, whether that's Emperor Palpatine, there is no overcoming nature. And nature in the form of what is explainable through science, and nature in the form of these mystical cosmic forces. And that's what makes Star Wars interesting in a lot of ways, and that's what makes this scene interesting in a lot of ways. It happens very quickly. It's only about a minute where we see this scene, but it really, I think, does put in a perfect image what Star Wars is about in its most basic level, which is this between the mystical and the known natural world. There's been a lot of talk about whether Andor is capturing the feel of Star Wars. I think that kind of stems from the tone and the pacing of the show. Obviously, it has the look. We're seeing Star Wars-esque weapons and ships, and we get glimpses of Coruscant. And so it has the look enough, but I think that's where this complaint stems from, that it doesn't really feel like Star Wars. I personally disagree. I think it does feel like Star Wars, but I can understand why people think this way. But I think people who do think that way should watch the scene again and really think about it in the context of what Star Wars does try to tell us. What are the themes, and what are the things that we've seen in previous Star Wars properties and films? I think this scene kind of answers the question, which is this show does understand what Star Wars is about. And this show, more importantly, does feel like Star Wars, even if there are slight differences from what we've seen in the past.